closer.
Close the door.
Yeah. कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुष्य कविता शाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं वाल्मीकेर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं कौ नयाति पराङ्गतिं यत्पिबं सततं रामचरितामृतासागरम् अदृप्तस्तं मुनिं वन्दे प्राचेतसमकल्मषम् गोष्पदीकृतवाराशं मसकीकृतराक्षसं रामायणमहामालारत्नं वन्दे अनिलात्मजम् अंजनानंदनं वीरं जानकीशोकनाशनं कपीसमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम् आमिषीकृतमार्ताण्डं गोष्पदीकृतसागरं तृणीकृतदशग्रीवम् आञ्जनेयं नमाम्यहम् उल्लङ्घ्य सिन्धोःसलिलसलीलं यस्सोकवह्निं जनकात्मजायाः आदाय तेनेव ददाह लङ्कां नमामि तं प्राञ्जलिराञ्जनेयम् आञ्जनेयमतिपाटलाननं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पौमाननन्दनम् यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम् मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि यः कर्णाञ्जलिसम्पुटैः हरः सम्यक् पिबत्यादरात् वाल्मीकेर्वदनारविन्दगलितं रामायणाख्यं मधु जन्मव्याधिजराविपत्तिमरणैः अत्यन्तसोपद्रवं संसारसह विहाय गच्छति पुमान् विष्णोर्पदं शाश्वतं तदुपगतसमाससन्धियोगं सममधुरोपनतार्धवाक्यबद्धं रघुवरचरितं मुनिप्रणीतं दशशिरसर्श्चवदं निशामयध्वं वाल्मीकिगिरिसम्भूतानां रामसागरगामिनि पुनातु भुवनं पुण्यात् रामायणं महानदी श्लोकसारसमाकीर्णं सर्गकल्लोलसङ्कुलं काण्डग्राह्यमहामीनं वन्दे रामायणार्णवम् वेदवेदे परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजं वेदः प्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मनः वैदेही सहितं सुरद्रमुतले हैमे महामण्डपे मध्ये पुष्पकमासने मणिमये वीरासने सुस्थितम् अग्रे वाचैति प्रपञ्चनसुते तत्त्वं मुनिभ्यः परं वाक्यान्तं भरतादिभिः परिवृतं रामं भजे श्यामलं माता रामो मत्पिता रामो भ्राता रामो मत्सखा राघवेशः सर्वस्वं मे रामचन्द्रो दयालुः नान्यदेवं नैव जाने न जाने साकेते शरदिन्दुकुन्दधवले सौदे महामण्डपे पर्यस्ता अगरधूपदीपललिते कर्पूरदीपोज्ज्वले सुग्रीवाङ्गदजाम्बवत् परिवृतं सौमित्रिणा सेवितं लीलामानुषविग्रहं रघुवरं रामं भजे श्यामलं मेघश्यामं महाबाहुं स्थिरसत्त्वं दृढव्रतं कदा द्राक्षामहे रामं जगतः शोकनाशनं जयत्यतिबलो रामो लक्ष्मणश्च महाबलः राजा जयति सुग्रीवा राघवेण अभिपालितः दासोऽहं कौसलेन्द्रस्य रामस्य क्लिष्टकर्मणः हनुमान् शत्रुसैन्यानां निहन्तां मारुतात्मजः न रावणसहस्रं मे युद्धे प्रतिबलं भवेत् शिलाभिस्तु प्रहत्तारपादपैश्च सहस्रशः अर्धयित्वां पुरीं लङ्काम् अभिवाद्यश्च मैथिलीं समृद्धार्धो गमिष्यामि मिषतां सर्वराक्षसाम् धर्मात्मा सत्यसन्धश्च रामो दासरथिर्यदि पौरुषे च अप्रतिद्वन्द्वः शरयेन जहि रावणीम् नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवगौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे तपस्वाध्याय निरतां तपस्विं वाग्विदां वरं नारद परिपप्रच्छ वाल्मीकिर्मुनिपुङ्गवम् ओम रामाय नमः। हरे कृष्ण। Last week we have stopped exactly where the messengers from Ayodhya, they came to the city of Rajagriha and they entered the palace of. There are a couple of mats in the other room. They entered the city of Rajagriha and then they met Bharata, and then I stopped at a good note where Rama has constructed his hermitage and he entered the hermitage. So today we will discuss about what had happened after the messengers entered the city of Rajagriha and then how Bharata came to Ayodhya and thereafter what happens. When I was praying I was thinking why did Ramachandra send us down today? I was thinking like, if Ramayana is going on, there should not be any hindrance, right? Why did he send me away? Because there's a reason. Today I wanted to discuss about the funeral of Dasaratha. and it's very painful. So Rama did not want it to hear them, so he knelt down. So, and I told you the other pastime that happened when we were talking about Ramayana. Right? The first time when we started Ramayana, people were coming to me and asking about Ramcharitmanas, which is authentic, which is not, which is that. Then I wanted to tell them about the importance of Valmiki Ramayana. And then Harivilas Prabhu advised me that tell them the episode where Rama himself sat down on the floor and listened to Ramayana. And then the next week I planned, okay, I will do this next Thursday. Last year we were doing it on Thursdays. And then exactly, I did not know, the altar from India arrived, the huge wooden altar we have right now, it arrived from India, and they moved the deities onto the floor. And then while I was saying this, Rama was on the floor. Some things like that. So we have to take it in a positive way to encourage ourselves and feel the eternal companionship. That's the goal of even doing this Ramayana, that you feel the eternal companion is with you, and you will always feel that you are blessed and your Father is holding your finger and walking beside you. Yeah, that good note will start again. So, couple of things. First, we'll discuss the lotus feet of Sita first, which is good. Last week, I forgot to tell about how Sumantra explained the lotus feet of Sita. I forgot the sloka, so today I remember it. So, alakta rasarakta abhavalakta rasavarjitau adhyapi charanau tasyaha padmakosha samaprabhau. That is how Sumantra explained the lotus feet of Sita. And so far, the entire Ramayana I have read it, last time when I did it, but I did not find anywhere Rama's feet being described so beautifully. But Sita's feet are described, Adhyapi charanau tasyaha padmakosha samaprabhau. Even though they are not coated with the paint of vermilion. Alakta, rasarakta. Alakta is a kind of, lime and turmeric, when you mix it, it comes into a red color. Alakta, rasarakta, abhavalakta rasavarjitau. Adhyapi charanau tasyaha. Even though they are not painted, but still her feet looks like padmakosha samaprabhau, with the red color that is in the lotus buds, so beautiful are her feet. So, yeah. So the messengers of Ayodhya arrived into the city of Rajagriha. They crossed many mountains, rivers, Hastinapura, Ganga, Kulinga river, and then Kuru, Jangala, and so many regions. And finally they came to Sudama or Vishnupadam, where many rivers are there, and Rajagriha city was located there. It is the present day Afghanistan, if you can map it to. They crossed Bahlika also. Bahlika is the present day Bactria. In the Alexandria era, they have Bactria kingdom. So they crossed it. So the Kekaya Samrajya is in this region, west of Ayodhya. So they reached the city of Rajagriha, and then they entered a huge palace gate which was outside. Before you enter that city, they have a huge gateway, and then they crossed that gateway, and then they went inside. And on that day, that particular day, before the messengers arrived, Bharata was distressed because he had a dream which was a terrible dream, and he never had such a dream in his life, and he was so much in anguish. And looking at his distress, his grandfather Asopati and his maternal uncle Yuddhajit, they arranged for panegyrists and bards to sing and to entertain Bharata, and also some jokers to tell some jokes and make him laugh. But in spite of hearing so many things, but still Bharata was distressed, and all his friends asked him, "Why are you so distressed today? We haven't seen you like this. What happened?" Then Bharata explained, "Last night I got a dream in which my father Dasaratha was drinking oil, and he fell down himself in a muddy pool which was full of cow dung." One might ask, why is cow dung inauspicious in the dream? Cow dung is auspicious especially for Vaishnavas, but why is it inauspicious in a dream? If you fall down in a cow dung, actually when you die, when they lay down the funeral pyre, they put the cow dung, right? The dung biscuits made of cow dung, and then they put it on you and then they burn you. So that's why cow dung coming into a dream is inauspicious. So my father fell down into a pool of cow dung, and then he was drinking oil and then laughing terribly. And I also saw women dressed in red and black garments coming and laughing and shouting and wailing at my father. And I also saw a female demon dressed in black garments pulling my father away into the southern direction. And my father was himself was riding a chariot of donkeys which was going in the southern direction. The south is the place for Yama. The 4 Dikpalakas, if you remember, the east is for Indra, the north is for Kubera, the south is for Yama, and the west is for Varuna. So that's why Seattle has a lot of rain, because we are in the westernmost region. So it's for Varuna. So it's being dragged in the southern direction. So and anybody who ascends a chariot of donkeys, and if he's dragged in the southern direction, that means his funeral is right ahead, right around the corner. So, and why did I get a dream like this? In my whole life, I never dreamt such a terrible dream, and today I find this dream, and some kind of an eclipse, is being shrouding me. I am in a dark shadow, and my color is going away, my glory is fading away, and I abhor myself. I am hating myself. Why is this? And Bharata was distressed. And if such things happen, either me, Lakshmana, or my father Dasaratha are in danger. And last week I explained, why only Bharata, Dasaratha, and Lakshmana, because they are the 3 people who love Rama unconditionally, along with Sita. Of course, Shatrugna loves Bharata, so he is already, if it is said Bharata, that means Shatrugna also. So, and Bharata, when he said this, immediately when he was explaining his dream, he heard the news of the arrival of the messengers from Ayodhya. And when Bharata heard that, his agony became, multifold. And then the messengers rode directly into the kingdom, and then they entered the palace of Aswapati, and then they greeted the king, and they greeted Bharata, and they gave all the gifts that they bought from Ayodhya.
You have one doubt here. Why did they? It is such a bad. It's not a sad news, right? Mm-hmm. So why they have to give the gifts to the king when? Yeah,
because
some bad news.
Vasishtha, if you remember, in the last week's edition, Vasishtha tells the messengers not to tell the news of the departure of Dasaratha and also the exile of Rama, because it is not good to spread out the news, especially if it is bad. To keep it in the kingdom, it's not safe for the kingdom. What the ministers have said? They said one night without Dasaratha passed like 100 years. Without a king, it's very difficult. So that's why, just let them get the feeling that everything is fine. Not even a hint that Dasaratha had passed away or anything terrible had happened in Ayodhya should not be given away. That news should be given away. And that's why they gave the gifts. They gave all the gifts to Aswapati, and then they told to Bharata that, my dear Bharata, of this dowry, 100 crores of gold coins, should be given to your grandfather Aswapati, and 10 crores of them should be given to your maternal uncle Yuddhajit. And they gave a lot of elephants and other things, chariots and stuff. And Bharata, he questioned, what is the reason for your arrival all of a sudden? Is everybody in Ayodhya are hale and healthy? Are they safe? Is my father Dasaratha ruling well, and is he good in health? And is my brother Rama doing good in health? And is my mother Kausalya, who has given birth to auspicious Rama, is she doing well? And how about Sumitra, who has given birth to the noble Lakshmana and Shatrugna? She is always auspicious and always talks propitious things. Is she all right? How is my mother Kaikeyi, who is always vain of her beauty and proud? How is she doing? Here, Bharata directly asks, how is my mother Kaikeyi, who is proud of her, vain of her beauty and proud, and she is always proud, and she thinks that she is intelligent. He also says this, she thinks that she is intelligent than anybody else. How is she doing? Maybe he has a small, hint that something terrible had happened because of his mother, and that's why he is hating himself. And then when he asks such questions, the messengers from Ayodhya, they are very intelligent, very diplomatic, and they replied saying that, my dear Bharata, all the questions you have put about your kith and kin, about whom you have asked, they are all fine, they are all doing well and good. The goddesses of Lakshmi, the goddesses of fortune, is waiting for you with a lotus in her hand. Please proceed forward to Ayodhya. This is what they said. And Bharata also did not press them, maybe because he's afraid, why to carry the news here? Let me hope for the good until I reach Ayodhya. So, and then, and as I said, the messengers were very, very intelligent and diplomatic, so they did not express anything. For the messengers, it took maybe 3 or 4 days to reach Rajagriha, but then the route that now Bharata is going to take will take him 7 days to reach Ayodhya. Aswapati called Bharata and said, "My dear Bharata, you are the glory of Ikshvaku race." Then he kissed his forehead and he said, "Please convey my obeisances to your father Dasaratha and all your mothers, and also to your brothers Rama and Lakshmana." He's saying that he gave him numerous blankets. I think in Afghanistan, mountain regions, that's what they can give. So they give numerous blankets and also numerous mules, mountain ponies, and hundreds of chariots, and also dogs that are ferocious as tigers, like hunting dogs. He gave him dogs, and then he gave him lot of gold chains and 1,600 horses. He gave him 1,600 horses of exquisite quality. And then Aswapati, his maternal uncle, gave Bharata. Aswapati is his grandfather. Yuddhajit, the maternal uncle of Bharata, gave him elephants from the Airavata race. He gave him elephants, and then they sent Bharata towards Ayodhya. Bharata set forth with all his messengers and soldiers and his paraphernalia. He started moving towards Ayodhya. He crossed Sudama, Hladini and Setadru rivers. Setadru at the village of Iladhana, and thereafter he reached a place called Aparaparvata. Thereafter he crossed a rocky hill called Akurvati, and then he came to the river called Kulinga, which was clear, which had clear waters, and he drank water, he took rest, and then he moved forward, and then he reached a place where Yamuna river was flowing, surrounded by mountains. There they took rest actually, and then they bathed the horses, they cleaned the limbs and everything, and then they drank water, and then they took water for their future journey also. And after crossing Yamuna river, they reached a place called Bharmuda. It's a forest. It's the woods of Chitraradha, and then the woods of Bharmuda. It was in the Veeramatsya region. And after crossing the Veeramatsya region, they reached a river called Pragwata, which is a place called Pragwata. There they crossed the Ganga river. And before reaching Ganga, they also went through some places called Ujjihana. No, not Ujjihana. Only after crossing, they reached the confluence of Ganga and Saraswati river. Then they crossed it. They reached a place called Ujjihana. There are a lot of Salavrakshas. There they took rest. But Bharata from here, he made haste, and then he took a chariot, and then he started forward. And the retinue continued a little later. But Bharata went forward along with some of the messengers, and after crossing Ujjihana, he also reached a region called Bharmuda, Jambuprastha, Uttamika, Shelyakarta, Uttamika, and finally he crossed so many rivers, Kulikostika and Kutika river, and then Kapivati river, and after that he reached Sthanumati. Sthanumati, it's a river at Ekasila village. Actually, I've heard in some discourses that even Ayodhya and Saketapura is called Saketapura, and it's also called Ekasilapura. There are several names. So here is a Ekasila village where he crossed the Sthanumati river, and after that Sthanumati, and then they reached Gomati river. Gomati river he crossed at Vinata village. And then he proceeded forward and reached the city of Kalinga. This is not the kingdom of Kalinga, which is in Orissa, but it is a little south of Ayodhya. He reached Kalinga Nagara. And from there, he proceeded forward. 7 nights have passed till now. And then on the 8th day morning, at the dawn, he saw Ayodhya as a heap of white clay. because the buildings are white in color, and he saw Ayodhya as a heap of white clay early in the morning at dawn. And then he entered the kingdom of Ayodhya. And while entering, he saw nobody on the streets. There were no sacrificial fires outside. There was no fires from the kitchens, and he could not see the youngsters, coming away from gardens, spending that night in the garden with their lovers. He could not see anything. Udyanavanas, everything is bereft of people. Nothing was there. Bharata's agony grew, 10-manifold. And then he asked his messengers, why is it that I am not able to see Dasharatha's people, the people of Ayodhya, now here at this gate? Usually I am welcomed by so many people whenever I reach Ayodhya. Where are all they? I don't see them. Something, some kind of calamity might have befallen on the city of Ayodhya. My anguish is growing intense. So saying, Bharata went into the Ayodhya kingdom. And when he reached the innermost sanctum of the city, he entered the palace of Dasaratha first. But Bharata did not find Dasaratha in that palace. He thought maybe my father could have been in my mother's place, Kaikeyi's place. Let me go and check there. So Bharata went into the Kaikeyi's palace. There, when he entered Kaikeyi's palace, he could not see Dasaratha on the couch, on the Hamsatulika bed. Then he asked his mother, he first prostrated in front of Kaikeyi, he fell at her feet, clasped her feet, and then paid his obeisances. His mother Kaikeyi lifted him, and then she kissed his forehead, and with love, and because she has not seen Bharata since long time, and asked him all the well wishes, like, how is your grandfather Aswapati? How is your maternal uncle Yuddhajit? How was your journey from Rajagriha to Ayodhya? Is everything went fine? How come you have come from such a long distance? Are you tired, or are you okay? You have not even wiped off the dust from your body. So she asked so many questions. Then Bharata, he looked at Kaikeyi and asked, everybody is fine. Yuddhajit is fine, Aswapati is fine, but where is my father who used to welcome me, and then first he used to wipe off the dust from my body and make me sit on his lap and used to ask me all these questions. Where is my dear father? Where is Ramachandra? I am not able to see anybody. Where are they? So he questioned. Then Kaikeyi replied that, my dear son, your father have reached that place where all the living beings have to reach at one point in their life, at the end point in their life. That's what she said, so peacefully. And Bharata, as and when he heard that news, he was shocked. And then he fell on the ground unconscious. And then he rolled. He took the uttari and then put it on his face and then wept and wept. And then finally Kaikeyi lifted him, saying, you should not weep like this, my son. You are going to be the next emperor. And then he was shocked further. And he asked, how come? What has happened to my father? Why did he die? Was it some kind of disease? When I left Ayodhya, it was not reported to me of any such medical ailment. Why was it my father had passed away? Where is Rama and Lakshmana at the point when he was leaving his body? I mean, maybe Bharata could have thought, if my brother was here, he could have fought even with the messengers of death and brought back my father to life. There is no reason that my father would have given up his life when Rama is here. So he was sure that Rama and Lakshmana are not here. Then he asked, where are Rama and Lakshmana? What did my father say at the end of his life? Then Kaikeyi replied that your father wept aloud, calling, Ha Rama, Ha Sita, Ha Lakshmana, and then he gave up his life. Why did he call Ha Rama, Ha Lakshmana and Ha Sita? Where were all they? Then she said, Rama and Lakshmana and Sita, they went to Dandakaranya, wearing the robes of a mendicant. Then he was further shocked. Why did Rama and Lakshmana have to go to forest? Then she explained, because of you, my child, I wanted you to be the emperor. For your sake, I have sent them to the forest. Then he was further shocked. Then he yelled that, you sinful woman, you have asked, you are here for the destruction of Ikshvaku race. I did not expect this from you. My father, not knowing, he bought a crocodile from the ocean into his palace in the form of you. How come these arrogance and ignorance have come into your mind? Your husband belongs to a great race, Ikshvaku clan, and even on your mother's side or on your father's side also, Aswapati and Yuddhajit, they are all noble people. You have come from a noble descent. But how come such ignoble thoughts have occupied your mind? I cannot express my astonishment at what you have asked and what you have caused to my family. And so saying, Bharata wept aloud and he started weeping. Then Kaikeyi lifted him. My son, you who would be king should not weep like this. Get up. And then he further got agonized and he yelled further. He shouted further that from today you are not my mother. I renounce you. If at all Rama would not have abandoned me for killing my mother, I would have killed you by now. Just because of the fact that Rama would not like me if I do any kind of harm to women or my mother, and for that one reason I am excusing you. You are eligible to be killed. So saying, Bharata cried out for a long time. And Kaikeyi was also shocked. For whose sake I have asked these two boons, and for whose sake I am bearing all this ill fame and all this ridicule and criticism, and that person, my son, is blaming me now. She was also shocked. And then Bharata, after crying for a long time, he told the story. Once upon a time, can you go and just press it? Bharata told that story. Once upon a time, when Nandini, or the Kamadhenu of Vasishta, when Kamadhenu was going in the skies, she saw two bullocks being pulled by a man, and then he was hurting those bullocks severely. And she wept, looking at the grief caused to her sons, because all the bulls, they're all the children of Nandini, Kamadhenu. When she saw that, her tears, they fell on the hands of Indra, who was going at a substrata level on his Airavata. When he saw the tears, he looked up and he immediately identified Nandini. And he went and asked Nandini, my dear mother, what has caused you this grief? Why are you crying? Then Nandini told that my children, bulls, they are being treated this way on the planet Earth. So that's for one reason I am crying. Then Bharata gave this example to say that Nandini, in spite of having so many hundred millions of bulls as her sons, but just because two bulls were being troubled, she wept. What would that Kausalya do? Her one and only son is being exiled to the forest. What will happen to her? And she cried out. And Bharata also cried that, how come you have sent Lakshmana also to the forest? What would that Sumitra do? Like that, he asked questions to Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi did not say anything. She kept quiet. And then upon hearing the news that Bharata has arrived to the palace of Kaikeyi, Vasishta and the ministers, they all approached that palace. And then they asked Bharata to take the kingdom. Then they asked him first to perform the funeral rites. Then he wept and he agreed to do it. And then Kausalya also, having heard that Bharata has arrived, she tells to Sumitra that I want to see that foresighted Bharata. I don't know why she used that word foresighted here. I want to see the foresighted Bharata. So Kausalya, Sumitra, they all went to the palace where Bharata was. And Bharata was also rushing to see Kausalya, so he was also running towards Kausalya's palace. So they both met in between. And when Kausalya asked Bharata, my dear Bharata, having taken the kingdom from my son, you live gloriously, my son. You and your mother should be very happy. What will happen to me? My only son is exiled to forest. And then as and when she said that, Bharata collapsed again in agony. And then he slowly got up and then he said, my dear mother, I would get all those sins, whatever sins that the persons whom I am going to talk about now have committed. So he said, may that person get a sin upon whose counsel my brother Rama had been exiled to the forest. What sins will he get? Bharata explains that if at all a person treats its parents badly, whatever sin he gets, that sin, I would get it. If at all a person who kicks a cow or who kicks a brahmana with his leg, whatever sin that person gets, I would get that sin if I had desired my brother to go to the forest. And the person who had counseled my brother to go to the forest, that person would get the sin that a person who has cheated his friend. And he also says that a person who does not accept the request of his wife after her taking bath and coming into the house, that person, whatever sin he gets, I would get that sin. And he also says that I would get that sin of that person who will not see the Pattabhishekam of Rama. He explains this also, that one who has not seen the Pattabhishekam of Rama, whatever sin he gets, or never heard about the Pattabhishekam of Rama, whatever sin he gets, I would get that sin. Bharata clearly says here. And he also tells that I would get that sin if people are quarreling on the road, and if you watch it like an audience and take pleasure of it without separating them, whatever sin that person would get, I would get that sin also. He ends with this actually. That sin is also explained. That is also, even in those days, people, when they quarrel on the road, people would stop and watch. Could have been there. So, that's why the lifestyle of Ramayana that is described in Treta Yuga is very close to our modern day lifestyle. As I said in one of our episodes, that when Lakshmana explains that the people of Ayodhya slept on the terraces, and when winter season begins, they come down and sleep in their houses. We do that too in summer, right? So the lifestyle of Ayodhya people are very much similar to our lifestyle. So when Bharata said all these sins, then Kausalya was happy, and she said, "My dear son, I am satisfied that you have love for your brother, and unknowingly I have insulted you. My child, you are the future of the Ikshvaku clan. Please rise and do the proceedings for your father." And Bharata got up. The next day, they went to the place where Dasaratha was kept in the oil drum, Tailadhroni, and there Bharata lifted Dasaratha. They say Dasaratha was lifted by whom, by either Bharata or other servants. They lifted Dasaratha from that oil trough. But Dasaratha, in spite, after 10 days, because he is a Rajarshi, even Bharata says that Ikshvaku, the Ayodhya, was ruled by Rajarshi. He calls his father Rajarshi. So because Dasaratha was such a noble man, he did not have any pride, in spite of being such a powerful imperial king. So when he was lifted, his body was still radiant, as if he was still sleeping. His body looked like that. Great people who have done a lot of austerity and tapas, and who have such great qualities, they are like that. Their bodies are divine. Ramanuja Sarira, Pardhiva Sarira, is still there in Srirangam till today. They have preserved his body, and if you go there, you can still see his body, nails, everything is Divya Deha. He is from Vaikunta, he is Adisesha, he is Ramanujacharya. So he is Lakshmana himself, Ramanuja. So that's why his body is divine, so they preserved it. So like that, Dasaratha's body was also divine. When they lifted, the body, it looked as if he was still asleep, and he was sound asleep. Then they brought him outside the palace, and then they smeared all kinds of sandalwood paste and all other things that they have to do at the time of death. They built a palanquin for Dasaratha. They placed him in the palanquin, and then they carried the palanquin, and in front of the palanquin they threw silver, gold, and alu, agaru, all the incense, everything. They burnt incense like that. They scattered, and then everybody followed Dasaratha. The queens also followed in their palanquins, and they reached the funeral place, which is near Sarayu river, and then they placed Dasaratha on the funeral pyre, which was made of Devadaru wood and several other kinds of fragrant wood. Devadaru burns quickly, so it was a light wood which burns quickly. It was added as a fuel, but other woods are for fragrance. So they added, and then they put Dasaratha on top of the funeral pyre. And then after circumambulating anti-clockwise in direction by Kausalya, Sumitra, Kaikeyi, and then Bharata, and finally they lit the fire, and then with the chanting of the sacred hymns and everything. And then they all left back to Ayodhya. And then they went back to Ayodhya the next day, on the 13th day. 13th day after Dasaratha died. Like, it took 4 or 5 days for the messengers to go to Rajagriha, 7 days for Bharata to come, and then the next day, I think it's on the 12th day or 13th day. They asked Bharata to come and then fetch the bones of Dasaratha. So they reached the funeral ground again. After seeing that dark brownish, burnt out funeral pyre, Bharata fell on the ground and he started to weep. Shatrughna also fell on the ground and started to weep. There, Vasishtha came and explained them how all the living beings have to, take birth and die. And similarly, Sumantra, the minister, lifted Shatrughna and told him the life cycle of, the living beings. Everybody has to go through this, my dear Shatrughna, get up. You have to take care of the upcoming duties. And then they took him, and then they collected the bones, and then they left. They all went to the city. And after that, for 10 days, they spent the days in, mourning. It's called the observance, mourning period. And everybody slept on the floor that entire 10 days. The entire kingdom slept on the floor. Because everybody loved Dasaratha. So when, after the 13 days, when everything, the Saucha period was gone, then Vasishtha, Sumantra, and all the ministers, they all gathered in the palace and they invited Bharata also. And when Bharata came, Vasishtha asked, my dear Bharata, without a king, Ayodhya cannot last forever. And Dasaratha has entrusted this kingdom to you, and your brother has approved it. He also wanted you to be the king. So be the king of Ayodhya. Then immediately Bharata said, I cannot be a robber, my dear Guru Vasishtha. I am not a robber. I cannot rob this kingdom from Rama. Jeshtascha Ramascha. It says Rama is the eldest of the Ikshvaku clan. He is the son of Dasaratha. And the kingdom rightfully belonged to him. Rajyamcha Ahamcha. He says, including the kingdom, even I belong to Rama. I am an object in the kingdom of Rama. As the kingdom is an object, I am an object as well. And I belong to Rama as much as this kingdom belongs to him. So I cannot rule this kingdom. And you, being our preceptor, you should not talk like this in an adharmic way. Only utter those words that are righteous. So you should not talk this way. So here he corrects even his guru. I mean, such is the love of Bharata. Then when he said this, then Shatrughna was also angry, and some of the guards, they saw Mandhara going. She was decorated with all kinds of jewels, and she was, here Valmiki writes that she was like a monkey who was held in chains. So Mandhara was dressed in all kinds of ornaments, gold chains, girdles and things like that, and she was walking. And a couple of guards caught her, and they dragged in front of Shatrughna and told Shatrughna that she is the one responsible for your brother to get exiled. This all happened before Dasaratha came to the palace. So, pardon me if chronologically I am, back and forth. So when they brought Mandhara to Bharata, to Shatrughna, Shatrughna immediately caught hold of her, and then he dragged Mandhara. And he lifted his sword, and when Shatrughna was coming, the other associates of Mandhara, usually, people who does this kind of schemes, they have a badge, right? So, all the associates of Mandhara, they were also afraid. They thought Shatrughna will kill us, and then they took the shelter of Kausalya. See their belief. They thought, even though Kausalya's son, we have exiled Rama to the forest, but still she is the only one who can protect us now. So they took shelter of Kausalya. And then Shatrughna he jumped on Mandhara, he dragged her to Bharata. And he drew a sword and said, brother, she is the one responsible. I am going to kill her. Then Rama said, my dear brother, Bharata said, my dear brother Shatrughna, if at all I have to kill, here is the one responsible for everything, Kaikeyi, my mother. I should kill her. But why am I not doing so? because Rama treats her also as mother. For Rama, Kaikeyi is also as lovable as Kausalya. And also, according to Shastras, we should not touch women. We should not kill them. We should not harm them. For this reason, I am not killing my mother Kaikeyi. And when Kaikeyi herself, who is the fulcrum of all this misery, who is the architect of this misery, is okay, why should we kill Mandara? And upon killing Mandara or Kaikeyi, Rama will never look upon us as brothers. He will discard us. He will disregard us. So for this sake, we should not touch women. Here I would like to tell you that one of the Rama's qualities, when Valmiki asked, when Narada explains, he tells, Dharmagnaha satyasandascha prajanam cha hiterataha yashasvi jnana sampannaha suchihi vashya samadhiman prajapati sama shriman dhataripu nisudanaha rakshita jivalokasya dharmasya parirakshita rakshita swasya dharmasya swajanasya cha rakshita veda vedanga tatvagno dhanurvede cha nishtitaha. Here he says, upon all the glories he has spoken, 2 verses he has chosen from the words of Hanuman. Hanuman also, when he went to Sita, he told the same verse. He says, Rakshita jivalokasya swajanasya cha rakshita rakshita swasya vrittasya dharmasya cha parantapaha. That's what Hanuman says. Why am I telling this sloka is because Rakshita swasya dharmasya, that's what Narada said. And Hanuman says Rakshita swasya vrittasya. What does these things mean? That Rama is not only the protector of his people, but he protects the dharma of his people. Like he protects swasya vrittasya. He protects the code of conduct of his devotees. Like for that reason, Bharata, because Rama doesn't like me, if I do this, I will not do this. That's how he is protecting his conduct because of Rama. Rama is such a glorious Satya. Rama is such a glorious character. Such a glorious quality of Rama is that he protects the conduct of his devotees as well. So the Rama Bhaktas also try to protect their conduct. Because Rama doesn't like this, we don't want to do this. That is the greatness of this verse. Bharata's, Bharata is that living example for that verse. He's a testimony for the verse from Narada. So he says, and for this reason I am not killing my mother Kaikeyi, and why should we kill Mandara, who is just after all a servant? Leave her, forgive her. And then he ordered that all the architects, engineers, panegyrists, merchants, all other kinds of sculptors be invited now to the kingdom. Let them build a highway from Ayodhya to where Rama is living, and let us go together from here and fetch Ramachandra from wherever he is living back to Ayodhya. And when he said that, all the people were happy. They loudly proclaimed, Hail Bharata, and then they went. They fetched all these architects and everybody. They came and then they built a highway. When they were going on the highway, they haven't started. When they were building the highway, wherever there were no trees, they started planting trees. And wherever there are more trees than required, there they chopped off the trees. And then they leveled the grounds. And wherever there was several kinds of grass, that grows in like heaps, all those earthen mounds, they cleared them. And then wherever there were no ponds, they built ponds so that the journey, might be easy, so that water is available all the way. And then wherever there was murky water, they cleared it. The polluted water was cleaned. And then they built a fantastic highway from Ayodhya to wherever Rama was, and up to the Ganges river, So when they built it, after everything was built, the next day, sometime later in the court, when the Vasishtha invited Bharata to come to the palace, there he explains to Bharata to take the kingdom, and then Bharata rejects it, saying that I am an object and I belong to Rama and this kingdom belongs to Ramachandra. Then everybody in the court, they are all pleased. They do the Harshadvanas, and then they start from Ayodhya. They all get ready to get started from Ayodhya. Before this, Bharata's eagerness is so intense that I would like to tell you this anecdote. Bharata was very eager to see Ramachandra, right? Even Sita was eager to see Ramachandra. Whose eagerness in the entire Ramayana, if you want to measure, is greater? If you want to say that Bharata's eagerness to see Ramachandra was more than anybody else. Because After Yuddhakanda, when Hanuman comes, when Rama sends Hanuman, go and tell my brother Bharata, who is waiting there, who is about to die, tell him that I am coming soon. Hanuman goes, explains all the exploits of Rama, how he killed Ravana and how he has taken the Pushpaka Vimana. He is in there in Bharadwaja Asrama. Tomorrow he will come here. Chaitra Suddha Panchami he reached Bharadwaja Asrama. The next day he will be here. He explains all the things. Then Bharata hears everything intently and he praises Hanuman for delivering the good news. And then he again gets ready with all his paraphernalia, reaches the outskirts of Nandigrama. There he is waiting for his brother to come. And for a few minutes there is a delay. Rama won't come. On the horizon he doesn't see any dust. Then he turns towards Hanuma and says, my dear Hanuma, monkeys are famous for their mischief in the 3 worlds. I hope you are not doing any mischief with me. This is what Bharata said. Hanuman, who has convinced Sita with his language, beautiful language, Hanuman, whose language has been analyzed by Rama in their first meeting, he says, Nan Rigveda Vinitaha, Nan Yajurveda Dharinaha, Nan Samaveda Vidushakaha, Sakyameva Prabhashitum. One who has not mastered Rigveda, one who has not memorized Yajurveda, one who is not a scholar in Samaveda, like an expert in Samaveda, cannot talk like this. Nyunam Vyakaranam Krutsnam, Anena Bahudashrutam, Bahuvyaharata Anena, Nakinchit Apashabditam. After speaking for such a long time, there was not even one single grammatic mistake, nor there is an utterance of ill word. So glorious is Hanuman's speech. And he also says, Samskara Kramasampannam, Adbhutam Avilambitam, Ucharayati Kalyanim, Vacham Hridayaharshinam. He says, Samskara Kramasampannam. So delightful is his speech, so eloquent. And Adbhutam, it's excellent. Avilambitam, there is no delay at all in his speech. He's flowing like Ganga river. There is like Tailadhara. There is no intermittence at all. There is no stopping and starting. Such a flow is his speech. Ucharayati Kalyanim, he is uttering all propitious words, all the words that are auspicious. Vacham Hridayaharshinam, and his speech is causing pleasure to my heart. Vacham Hridayaharshinam. Such an eloquent speaker, Hanuman, is being insulted here by Bharata because of his eagerness. So the Hanuman who has convinced Sita was not able to convince Bharata. So that is the love of Bharata for Ramachandra. Ramachandra also likes Bharata's speech. He tells to Lakshmana that I am remembering that the pleasant talker Bharata's speech, who always utters pleasing words to me. So like that, they had such good relationship. Except Ramachandra, everybody else doubted the integrity of Bharata in this episode of Ayodhya Kanda. Kausalya, even Kaikeyi thinks that he will take the kingdom. Oh, here I would like to tell. First, when Bharata met Kaikeyi, he asks, why was Rama exiled? Did he stole any money? Did he steal any money from any Brahmanas or poor people? Or did he look upon women who doesn't belong to him? Then Kaikeyi said, don't you know that he doesn't do all these things? How can you ask such questions? That is not the character of Rama. So anyway, so Bharata had this intense love for Ramachandra. So when they all started from Ayodhya, all the merchants, panegyrists, sculptors, singers, players, everybody, they all started going towards where Ramachandra was, from Ayodhya. They started. And on there a grand caravan followed Bharata. Bharata ascended the chariot, and so his mothers and his brother Shatrugna and all the Vasishta, Vamadeva, Jabali, Kashyapa, Suyagnya, Markandeyu, Dirghayu, Rashtravardhana, Akopa, Sumantra, they all, all the ministers, they all got onto the chariots and then they started proceeding towards Ayodhya. They came to a point where Srungaverapura was, exactly at the same Ganga river, where Srungaverapura was there. Guha was ruling that kingdom, and they stopped near that kingdom. They built temporary cottages. They carried all these huge buildings, temporary residences for the royal princes and all these things, along with Bharata. They had such kind of temporary houses even at that time. So they placed all these things, and then Bharata was there in his Nivasa. Here it's only said Nivasa. Some people have translated it as tent, but I don't think there were tents during Treta Yuga. They had, they can build bamboo, temporary bamboo things, and then they burn them out. Once they leave that place, they burn it. They don't leave the trace. This is the tradition of the Ikshvaku kings, because enemies cannot trace them, right? So, in that Nivasa, when he was living, Guha, Nishada Raja, heard the news of Bharata's arrival at Ganga river. So, and then Guha went forward with all kinds of dried meat, honey, and other kinds of stuff. One may ask, why meat? Bharata will not eat meat. It is Nishada Raja, Guha was a tribal man. So for him, that is the food, right? So he took whatever he has to offer to the king. It's not that Bharata will eat meat. Because Bharata says to his mother Kausalya, when he is describing all the sins, in that he says, I will get the sin of that person who sells meat, liquor, and wax, and loha, iron. So all these 4 things you should not sell. I don't know, in modern days, you cannot go to, either Tata or Lakshmi Mittal and say you should not sell iron, They'll sell you also. Huh? Wax means this, on the doors you apply that laksha, that kind of wax. That laksha, mamsa, and loha, and poison, visha. All these 4 things, whatever that person sells, that kind of thing I too will get. That is a sin. Even this is in compliance with Manu Samhita, right? There is no disconnection between our scriptures. Manu Samhita also says, one who kills, one who transports the meat, one who sells them, one who cooks them, one who eats them, all these 5 people will get sin. That sin. So eating meat is not prescribed in Ramayana. Some people, I have heard that commentary, they say that Rama killed 4 deer and then he ate it, like that. But never in Ramayana there is a saying. There are 1 or 2 slokas that say that, but the credibility is questionable of those slokas. And also, even in that slokas, they say that Rama and Lakshmana killed 4 mrigas, not deers. The 4 mrigas, they could be any animal, like dangerous animals. That ends there. And then they say, they were hungry, they have eaten food. People would put together and they say Rama killed and then he ate and then Rama ate meat. They put together all these things. This is how they wanted to see that way, so they see it that way. Because Rama himself tells, before leaving Ayodhya, I did not tell this in this recital when I was doing. Rama tells that Chaturdasha Varshani Vatsyami Vijanevane Madhumula Phalam Hitva Jivan Munivadamisam. I would reside in forest for 14 years without eating meat like a muni. I will subsist only on fruits, roots, and honey. He says that. So that is clear that Rama will never eat meat. So he bought all that kinds of food to Bharata, and before going to Bharata, he tells to his kinsmen that, my dear people, friends, relatives, I see that a huge entourage is stationed on the banks of Ganga river. I see the dwaja of Kovidara tree. Dwaja means the flagstaff of having the symbol of Kovidara tree. Kovidara means a pomegranate tree. That's the symbol of Ikshvakus. Kovidwara dwaja. I see that dwaja. That seems to me that Bharata has arrived here. I would find out if Bharata had come with noble intentions for his brother or not. If the intentions are noble, we would arrange for an entire boat camp, and then we will take them into our boats and then let them cross the river Ganga. But if the intentions of Bharata are not good, better do it than saying it. Let's drown the boats in the middle of the river and then kill all the armies. We can face this 4-fold army. So saying, Guha reaches that Nivasa of Bharata. There, Sumantra saw Guha. Immediately he runs forward for Guha. He collects the Nishada Raja, he embraces him, and then he brings him into the Nivasa, and then he tells Bharata that, my dear Bharata, he is your brother's friend, Rama's friend, and he is very dear to your brother. Then Bharata, first, before bringing Guha, Rama introduces Guha's name to Bharata. He says, please introduce me to Guha. So then they bring Guha inside, and then they tell, he is your brother's friend. Guha, Bharata gets up, he pays his obeisances, and then he embraces Guha and says, you are... Yeah.
Who introduces Bharata to Guha?
Sumantra. Sumantra is the minister of... so when he introduces, Bharata welcomes Guha, and then Guha asks a question to Bharata. My dear Bharata, I am happy that you are here. I am very happy to see you, but I have a question in my mind. Please accept all these foodstuffs that I have bought for you. Now I have a question in mind. Are you with noble intentions for your brother, or have you come here with all this entourage to harm your brother who is just living in a forest, renouncing everything that he had? Then Bharata once again fell on the ground. He cried and said, the question you have asked, it's very misfortunate of me that to hear such words from you. It is very unfortunate that we have to utter such things. There should never be a day when a brother thinks of harming his elder brother, or brothers fighting among themselves. There should never be such a day. Please do not utter such things. I am here to bring back my brother to the kingdom. The kingdom belongs to Ramachandra, and I belong to Ramachandra. I am a sevaka to him. This is how Bharata says, and Guha felt happy and embraced Bharata. Actually, Bharata tells even in the court to Vasishtha that Anarya Justam Aswargyam. He says, I would get all those sins if I had done a deed so as to usurp the kingdom from my brother. This is the bad, and I would be a black mark on the Ikshvaku clan if I have done that. Anarya Justam Aswargyam, he uses the word. Bharata is also Lord Vishnu himself, right? So he utters here, to reject the kingdom, he utters Anarya Justam Aswargyam. But later in Dwapar Yuga, when he comes as Krishna, he tells that Kutastva Kasmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Justam Aswargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. That he says there, he tells to Arjuna that you have to accept the kingdom, you have to fight. If you don't, then he says Anarya Justam Aswargyam. You will reach a hell. It's not good for you. Anaryam, it's not befitting to a Kshatriya to reject the kingdom. So he says there. So both, the word was first used in Ramayana, Anarya Justam Aswargyam. So like that, Guha and Bharata met, they embrace each other, and Guha tells, I will show you the way to where Ramachandra is located. With that good note, we'll stop here and continue our Paduka Pattabhishekam in our next week, where there will be a long discussion between Rama and Bharata. War of words, that you take the kingdom, no, you take the... He will propose a logic and he counteracts it with, and Rama proposes another one. Finally, Rama gets defeated. So we'll see how it goes in our next episode. And this is a glorious episode, and it's a pinnacle of devotion. It's the crest jewel of episodes in Ramayana. So, Mangalam Koslendraya Mahaniya Gunatmane Chakravarti Tanujaya Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam. Any questions?